open your mind and let the information be your guide, not preconceived idea, because people say, you know, in the alternative media, we must stop censorship. Well, stop censoring your perception.
That lesson that you talk about, understanding the frequencies and tuning it into the right direction, it's been something that I personally learned myself after losing my job, broke my ankle, broke my thumb. Girlfriend of 2 years that I thought I was going to marry started breaking up with me and cheating on me, and I went through a lot of problems in my life, and I remember just going through just the most absolute personal pain, and only because of that pain was I able to realize that we are kind of in charge of our frequencies. And that's what made me make this subway video, the Just Keep Going, You Have Nothing to Lose, which is an example of how sitting there on the subway, we have a choice to make. We could either sit there, be miserable, be sad, or we could go out there, open up, talk to people, exchange ideas, and learn from each other. Now this kind of energy, I like to kind of describe it as a spiritual war. I think a lot of people also in the alternative media are also kind of getting the worst of it as well. I think a lot of people in the alternative media aren't tuned into the right things, and then that they're still filled with ego and pride and fear, and you see that exemplified. So even in our field.
Well, if you want to see internet expressions of the distortion, go on alternative media forums. Yep. And you know, you want to change the world? You are the world you want to change. What are you doing? All this abuse and stuff that goes on. And that's a frequency. It's a very low frequency. Yeah. It's a distortion. It's not the natural order to go on a website forum and hurl vile abuse at people. Yep. Yep. It's just extraordinary, the self-denial that people have of what they really are compared with what they think they are.
There's a lot of fear and a lot of insecurity, which leads people automatically to treat others just as bad as they feel themselves in order to get rid of that pain that they have within them. So you see that naturally progressing, but naturally to the people in our movement, the people in the alternative media, what do you think is the most important lesson that they should understand? What do you think that they should know? Because I think that they're caught up in this spiritual war as well, but I think they're caught up in the wrong direction. How can we bring them in the right direction? What can we do? I know it's very personal on an individual basis. It takes a lot of different things in your life to see these things, but what can we do to help people understand this kind of spiritual war that we're talking about?
Well, I like the word war, because that is a distortion as well in its vibration, but it's a frequency tussle, shall we say, of whether the frequency of balance is dominant over the frequency of distortion. And clearly in the world that it is, the distortion is king. Because how it works is, because it's a distortion, it has great limitations when it comes to what it can do, what it can manifest, what it can create, compared with balance, the natural order. And so it has had to pull its targets into that distortion for this reason, because it is the distortion. It's an expert at the distortion. The people it pulls in are not. They're the experts. They're playing at home in a distorted state. And so what they've created, although they are incredibly limited, is a world in which, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. But if you can open your heart to good intent, positive intent, again, coming back to intent, then you become the two-eyed, third-eyed man, a woman. And at that point, you become more powerful than the distortion. You become able to understand reality better than the distortion. Because when it comes to the occult and the rituals, they are dealing with what I call the intellectual spirituality, if you like, intellectual knowledge of reality, technological perception of reality, because you can use the word technological for their rituals, because they're very repetitive, and they have certain ways of doing things to manipulate energy. But true spiritual, balanced understanding doesn't need rituals to change reality. It just changes reality. Can do it with its thoughts, can do it with its everyday life, because it has a power that doesn't need ritual. Ritual is in so many ways an expression of trying to overcome the limitation that this distortion and its manifestations have of what they can create and what they can do. You know, it's like me jumping off the cliff here and flying against having to go and get in a plane. And so a common theme that I've picked up over the years is that the various expressions of this distortion in terms of entities of various kinds and these Illuminati bloodlines, they're in constant fear of being found out. And they're in constant fear of the truth about reality being understood. Why? Because the game's up. Why is it that, I mean, this was interesting because we all come into this arena from a different direction. Some people come in by investigating UFOs and realizes they're a cover-up, and they step in and suddenly they see this big connected conspiracy. And some people coming through here. How I came into it was this. I started to realize 25 years ago, next year, that the explanations for reality that I found credible were not taught in the schools. You never saw them on the television. Science was dismissing them as nonsense. And I started to think, well, why is this? Why is this knowledge, which for me has credibility, and I see all these years later in far, far greater detail what credibility it has, why is it being suppressed? Well, it's being suppressed because we have to be kept in ignorance of who we are and the nature of the reality we're interacting with and how we impact ourselves on that reality and how that reality impacts itself on us, the way we're describing. Because with that knowledge, it's all over. Mm-hmm. We have to be kept in ignorance. And what's ignorance? Ignorance is an expression of distortion. It's not the natural order to be ignorant. It's the natural order to be all-knowing. And so one of the things I would say to people in the alternative media, or the mainstream of alternative media as I call it, is don't be a mirror of what you're condemning. Don't talk about sheeple who you say close their minds and close their eyes to the obvious fact that there is a conspiracy going on, when you are closing your mind to anything beyond where you are. Open your mind and let the information be your guide, not preconceived idea, because people say, you know, in the alternative media, we must stop censorship. Well, stop censoring your perception all day, every day, because that's what they're doing. Yeah. They are self-censoring their perception by dismissing something by reflex action because it's different to their current belief. And as Einstein put it so well, that condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance. Mm-hmm. And so people who want to really, really understand what the conspiracy is and where it's come from. And that's important because, you see, you can't divorce a problem from the solution, because how can you find a solution to something if you don't know what the problem is? You don't know the nature of the problem. You know, okay, fix my car. What's wrong with it? I don't know. Oh, well, I'm going to fix it then. And so it's important that people keep their minds open and allow in concepts that they currently would reject. See if they stand up. Don't just, no, just let it in. And what happens if you do, then you start to realize that what you were laughing at and ridiculing and dismissing actually has enormous credibility, far more credibility than the belief system you had before. I mean, I've been ridiculed about talking about non-human entities manipulating our society, and some of them taking a reptilian form and stuff like that, by people who believe that a guy was born to a virgin mother, died on a cross, 3 days later came back to life in a cave, and then went into the sky from a hill, promising to come back on a cloud. You know? Yeah. And I'm thinking, you're laughing at me? But this is it. The programming, belief system programming, does not do self-reappraisal. It just does bleep, 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 bleep. And, you know, the idea that you can get all that you need to know to see how the world works and to make a difference as a result of that knowledge, that all you need to know is between the covers of a book, be it the Bible, the Quran, or anything, and knowledge within this tiny frequency we call visible light. That is insane to believe that that's all you want. But here we go. If you want to keep people in ignorance, and ignorance keeps them in the distortion, you've got to squeeze their knowledge as much as possible. And there, in many aspects of religion, actually condemn seeking knowledge beyond the religion, right? And then you look at the education system, which is just a programming operation, and you get kids in at a ever younger age now. Some idiot over here in Britain, in the education establishment, is now calling for children to start school at 2, because they want them programmed as early as possible, and they want to get more and more control over them and less influence from parents, and that's for the many reasons for that. So you get them in at the start and you tell them what to believe, what is right and wrong, possible and impossible, good and bad, all the way through. You keep out all the esoteric stuff, you never go there. In fact, you have rules to stop television stations broadcasting the stuff, and out the other end comes an already programmed person, unless they've held their ground, and many young people do these days, but many don't. And then you take that programming through education, and then you add a religion to it, right? And then you add the media to it. I mean, what? You know, what was it? The line goes, you know, if you go to kindergarten and a nice teacher tells you 2 and 2 equals 5, and then you go to school and 2 and 2 equals 5, college 2 and 2 equals 5, university 2 and 2 equals 5, media 2 and 2 equals 5, peer pressure who've been through the same system, yeah, 2 and 2 equals 5. You'll go through your life believing 2 and 2 equals 5, but as Gandhi said, even if you're a minority of one, the truth is still the truth, because 2 and 2 still equals 4.
Exactly. And that's why I think it's very important for people, especially in the alternative media, to, number one, humble themselves, and number two, question everything, and not to be afraid to go places that other people won't go to, but don't claim like you know the ultimate truth, because ultimately no one does. And really, I think it's also a lot of fear and a lot of placating to the audience that a lot of people in this kind of field and this alternative media sphere kind of do, because they're afraid. You know, naturally people play to that fear of, you know, I won't talk to David Icke or interview him or take him seriously, because if I do, my reputation is going to be, you know, ruined or whatever. But ultimately what I learned, and especially from you should never be afraid to go to places that other people won't. You should never placate to your audience. You should never change yourself based on outside perceptions of other people. You should always be the truest version of yourself. And the ultimate version of truth is to question everything and not to be afraid to be yourself. yourself. And you have definitely taught me that lesson from 25 years now of being just ridiculed and abused, but you still stand there and you've been proven right. And you've helped so many people in so many different ways that it's just really a very inspiring story when people look into everything that you have done. You sold out Wembley before, and you're doing it again this year as well. So that information is going to be in the website below. But David, I guess the last question is very open sourced one, kind of. What would be your message to humanity? One thing that you could say to everyone in this whole world, if they had to listen, what's one thing you would tell them?
Easy then. Well, off the cuff. Look at the world and look at your life. Look at your sources of information all your life, where they've come from, who's decided what information you receive and what you can't receive, and ask yourself if on the basis of that you can possibly have a real fix on who you are and where we are and what's going on in the world. And the answer has to be, well, I can't. Ask yourself how possibly you could know all you need to know by reading a single book. How you could know all you need to know by going through a state-controlled, curriculum-controlled, information-controlled education system. Or how you could, through a system-controlled, corporation-owned, information-controlled media. So beyond that, beyond those sources of information, is a whole infinite universe of awareness, of insight, of knowledge, of understanding, just waiting to be tapped, just waiting. So it's just sitting there saying, come to me, come to me, come to me. And the system's saying, no, go away, don't go there, don't go there mad, don't go there. And so the choice between remaining a perception terminal of the system's version of everything and tapping into this infinity of awareness is just a choice. Choice you can make today, a choice you can make now. Do I open my mind to all possibility, or do I reject anything that everyone else doesn't believe? And that's the question. And you know, when you are in a crazy world and you make the choice to no longer be crazy, there are challenges, because those still crazy will abuse you and ridicule you, marginalize you, be embarrassed for you. Oh, I'm ever so embarrassed about my daughter, my son, he's become one of them hippies. Well, they're not making you become one, have they, mother? Well, no. Well, shut up then. Let them get on with it. And the question is, are people going to be them, or are they going to be someone else's version of what they are told they should be? And that's the true difference. People talk about freedom. We want freedom. I hear the alternative media. Freedom, free America, free that, free the other. But they're not free, because they're not free to think. They're not free to perceive. They're not free to intuit awareness, because they're censoring it on the basis of their programming. And it's all a choice. It's all a choice. People can change now, this minute, watching this, if they choose. Open your mind, open your heart, go with your intuition. Instead of, what do I think? What do I think? What do you feel? What do you feel? Do that, and your life will transform. Transform, because your frequency changes. When you go with your intuition, your frequency changes, because it's a different frequency to thought. Go with that, and amazing things will start to happen. You won't like all of them, but they'll be necessary. And with every challenge, there'll be the benefit of greater awareness. It's a fantastic journey. People can start on it anytime they want, and when they do, they'll realize what they've been missing.
Very, very well said, David.
Cheers,
Thank
Luke.
you
Always
so
great
much.
to meet you, mate.
And many people have actually, when they use DMT, they actually say that this helps them understand the greater understanding of everything. We were talking about DMT last night, and we talked how we had very similar experiences.
You stay motivated in the fight. I've been consciously losing the battle as of late. I feel that my efforts have been futile, that I can't retain my quality and quantity of content, that anything I report on is pointless.